Good evening and welcome to Tanz im August special edition. I'm Virve Sutinen and I'm at the studio, the Tanz im August studio, the place where we meet every evening for our streaming program and online program. First of all, it's the second day of our festival, so this is going to be a special day. We have some program points which are here for the first time. Today we will start our series of Happy to Listen. And today we have a very, very special talk between two Indigenous artists who we are very, very proud to present. First, Victoria Hunt. She is Australian-born Maori artist who works between dance, choreography, performance art, video, and photography. She is also a founding member of Body Weather Dance Company, the Quincy Company, and she is also a curator, so she's a co-curator of the Weather Exchange. So we are very proud to later today to have Emily from Australia, Sydney, Australia, with us. The other speaker will be Emily Johnson. Emily is originally from Alaska. She is of the Yupik Nation, now based in New York. She is an artist whose work is body-based, and she's also a land and water protector and an activist. So today's discussion will be about Indigenous perspectives when it comes to contemporary art and to the contemporary struggles, I would say. It's about art and activism. And this discussion will start at 8:30. Before we get that far, I would like to introduce you to another project that is having a start today. That is 1,000 Scores. 1,000 Scores, pieces for here, now, and later. We will have a discussion today between the three artists who have initiated this project. So in a minute, we will hear from Helgard Haug, David Helbich, and Cornelius Puschke. We had a little re-recorded discussion about scores, what a score is, and how does it work, and how does it work when you're working with international artists from all over the world, from very different cultural backgrounds. We are very proud of our collaboration with 1,000 Scores. We are commissioning together 5 artists, and the artists are Italian choreographer Chiara Bersani, Finnish choreographer Maija Hirvonen, Australian Victoria Hunt, who we will hear more from today, Kathleen Noel, originally from Haiti, working in Mali, and Choka Fai. And actually, today we will publish the very first score. The scores will be published one by one in the coming days, and today it is Choka Fai's score. We would like to show you the score. So here it is. Choka Fai is a Singapore artist who situates his practice at the intersection of dance, media art, and performance. And as you can see from this score, there's always sense of humor in his work. He is always playing around with the knowns and the unknowns. He's humorously kind of breaking away from traditional images and creating something new. So you will find these scores at the 1,000 Scores website. And there you can start doing your own little dance, crawling like a crab, moving like a crab, whatever that is. It would be quite interesting to see, but you can do that home alone, so nobody needs to know how that looks. So I think we would go directly to the discussion with 1,000 Scores. Thank you. We have had a little pre-talk, so we kind of know what we are going to touch base today. And I wanted to start with a very simple idea, because 1,000 Scores says a lot to all of us who are professionals. We kind of know by education and by experience what a score means to an artist or to the people who read it. But in your case, where did this idea come from? And how did you develop the idea of going to an online performance space? Who wants to start?
Cornelius, do you want to start? Because you actually triggered the whole thing.
Right. Okay. This is the beginning. Yes. When the whole Corona situation started and the theaters and all the art institutions started to close their doors, I immediately had the feeling that we have to find better answers than streaming of recorded performances to still have a place where performances can be presented and also take place in a different way. And then I thought, well, of course, this has to be the internet. If there's no other place to gather, it has to be the internet. There's no alternative. Mm-hmm. And then it became quite clear that it has to be a website. And one night I was texting with David and Helgard and asking them if we shouldn't start to create something like a blog or so. And I would say, first of all, it was just an idea to ask some people to post some things on a blog which are somehow instructional. And then the whole thing started to grow until the situation where we are now. And instructions, like instructional art pieces, play a big role in all of our three biographies, I would say, and all of our own approaches to it. So coming to a definition, well, how much time do we have? It's not so easy. But well, this is the beginning of the project, I'd say. And it was in April, May, something like that.
You all come from different disciplines. So do you, when we say score, do you think the same thing, or did you have to go through a lot of talk about what it actually means and how do you define it as an interdisciplinary concept?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about it still, and we will talk forever about it. That's the fun of the entire project. The thing is also, score triggers a lot of different feelings because it is so much more open than the direct translation to German, for example, which would be a Partitur. But Partitur is really we know it only from music, and it has a meaning in music, and a score has a meaning in so many other fields. I come from music, so for me, I have a hard time actually to get rid of this idea of a score as a notation. Even though I know that the score can, in other disciplines, means maybe sometimes more like a documentation. Something is scored means more like it is decided instead of improvised, or it is. So the idea of how precise does it have to be scored, something that is one of the questions also for, I think, every artist that is proposing something for the website and for us as well. So that's the beauty of it also, and that's why we also also for the communication, but we decided early on to keep the word score, to just throw the doors wide open for all these different interpretations, actually, or different meanings of it and different ideas that comes with it.
Helga, when I think of scores in terms of theater or dance, my first thought goes back to John Cage and the Black Mountain College, and how the things that had started, more maybe in the music and then visual arts in the beginning of last century, moves into the performing arts scene very strongly in the late 50s and the 60s. How does the score resonate in your world?
Yeah, definitely. Cage is an important player here, of course. We even took it a little bit even further back, like going to Duchamp and taking his first initial score, maybe which was created maybe in a similar situation. I mean, it was the end of the First World War, and he couldn't travel. So we are not in war, fortunately. But of course, our abilities or our possibilities were limited somehow. So we had to think it all over. Like, what are our habits? What do we normally do? Where do we act, and how do we act, and how do we communicate? So to me, a score as well it's a very light form. It is conceptual. It includes all different arts methods, actually. So yeah, if you look at us, like, we are from different origins, or playing on different stages normally, but you can all, like, put it together in this question, like, yeah, what is in your brain, first of all, in your head? Like, what happens if you read it, and how do you actually realize the score? Like, how does it look in your, like talking to the audience, like, how does it look in your very personal interpretation and in your environment? So yeah, there are lots of connections. I think I enjoyed totally that it helped us to sort of get it fluent again, get into working again, and not depending so much, on the big invitations, and depending so much on the big budgets, and on long process. But it was a very, very fast process, actually. So the moment, like, Cornelius contacted us, both of us, like David and I, said, yes, sure, we go for it. And then it was only a couple of very short weeks to create this. And yeah, I think it helped to cope with the situation.
How does that then work in practice? If you would have to advise our audiences, what do they have to do?
You mean like score-wise, or you mean the, like, architecture of the project?
They have to go to your webpage, like, really simple.
Right.
You have to go to the webpage, and then you choose a score.
Right. It's www.1000scores as numbers .com, and there you find a couple of artists and their scores. You click the score that is represented by a little image, and then you most of the times are immediately addressed as a reader or as an audience, and you're asked to do things, or to think about things, or to change things in the very situation that you are perceiving the score. And I think that's the general starting point for each artist that we are in contact with. And from then on, it goes in very different directions. Yeah, so that's the basic thing that we wanted to initiate.
And this happens in the safety of everyone's home.
Yes, the idea is that people, I mean, we imagined an audience being still locked down at that time, not necessarily locked up. So it doesn't have to be only at home. It could, I mean, you can, with your phone, you carry that whole score idea everywhere where you go. So the environment for us, we couldn't really know the environment. What somehow something we imagined was not necessarily a very social situation. It was more something, so like we asked the artists also to approach the readers, the self-performers, or whoever you want, the audience, individually. Not necessarily as a group, even though I'm pretty sure, we're all pretty sure the first score will arrive soon, where somebody asks people to come together, because that's the need of the time. So somehow we will see what happens and what people come up with. But so the idea is that people sit at home somewhere in a safe place, in a way that there's no one else watching them necessarily doing that, or performing that, self-performing the scores. So there's not really something like a judgment. We don't have a big call for sending us videos of how people perform the scores themselves, even though we would welcome them as well on the social media. But the idea is that it is it is somehow an intimate moment for you. You kind of do with the scores what you want to do with the scores. If you want to just read them, I mean, that's an option, obviously. If you want to go for it and really perform the scores for several weeks, to go for it every day, there's some scores asking that kind of a big commitment, then this is your score. If you're more for a small little task that happens in 5 minutes, that's the thing you can do. And if you transform the scores, also this is, of course, very open. So somehow it's an inspiration also to become your own, not only performer, but maybe almost your own artist, your own composer, your own choreographer, author, or whatever it is. That's also maybe to say that it is so beautiful that this project has so many different partners, so that we get like scores from all kinds of fields. So we have musical, I mean, people who are busy with music sending in scores. but we also have dancers, choreographers, we have writers, we have coders, we have like whatever you can imagine. I think this is in the future just getting bigger and more diverse and chaotic, hopefully also.
I like that idea of the non-judgmental part, because a lot of times when we are trying to engage our audiences in something participatory, there's quite a high threshold for really throwing yourself into something unknown and doing it in somehow in a public space. So I guess there's benefits also that we are somehow in our private spaces right now.
If I can jump on this quickly, just a short thing, because I like this comparison of the words interactivity and interactivity. I always come up with this. My colleagues might be a little bored by this, but I love it so much. The idea that, I mean, interactivity, which I love as well very much, and I do a lot of participatory projects and stuff, but is something where this judgment hangs in the room a little bit, or at least people are afraid of it. And it's very hard as an artist performer to open that up to a safe space again. Whereas the moment that you offer something there that is mainly happen in you or in your space, of course, if I'm alone, I can shout, and then it's still my internal space somehow. So then it is more an interactivity you're asking for. And that's, I mean, the judgment is you and maybe all the ideas you have and projections you have, but it is, yeah, it gives you, it opens up a lot of possibilities, I think. So.
Helgard, what do you think we take into the future from all of this? Like when we are finally maybe allowed to go back to our theaters and rehearsals and meeting our public in live and physically, what do you think we take with us?
I think it, yeah, sorry, the connection is a bit broken at the moment. I think it's not losing its energy. I hope, like, it's not just a replacement for me. Like, I mean, we have this very ambitious goal of 1,000 scores. It's a lot, we realize now. I mean, that page is gradually growing now. So with Tanz im August, we have like a couple of scores like that come in a bunch, but like from the starting on, we said, okay, let's try to have 2 new releases every week, which is a lot, like, because of course there's a lot of communication, like attached to this. Like, yeah, what you said, like, what is a score is not only discussion between the 4 of us, but it is with every invited artist, of course. Like, what do you want? Is that okay? Like, and to work together on this as well and find the best possible answer to the invitation. So I think it hopefully, like, but I have the feeling that it keeps on actually being more and more relevant, like the more scores we get and the more different they get, like that people would like to, you know, pop in and out, though maybe they start to work in their traditional, like scores or traditional ways again. Like, it's not just a replacement or, you know, a small little entertainment program. I think it can go on. It could be 1 million scores if you want. So let's try to take the challenge of 1,000 at first. I was always wondering, like, maybe there is again, maybe we invent more, you know, possibilities for that, like meeting, for example, like on an online platform could be one, and doing the scores together. Like it is global, it is international. We could reach out to an unknown audience as well. And yeah, I'm very curious what we'll invent with that. Like, it's unstoppable, I think.
It is. You are also doing a global reach out for the artist. You're talking to artists from all over the world with very different cultural backgrounds. When we started discussion, we started with the kind of Western art theory and art history. So when you're talking and engaging with artists coming from very different cultural backgrounds, how does that add something into it? And what are the questions that you're getting back from people who don't come from this tradition?
Well, it's not so easy to answer like this question like generally, because we are still in the beginning phase of the project, I'd say. But coming from my experiences, and I had already like, I don't know, 10 or 15 scores behind me, so to say, and maybe most of the communications with the artists, I'm always trying to not explain too much the art history behind the idea. And I would also say that we don't, although there is obviously the tradition to Fluxus and Cage and also Obrist to it and Miranda July and all these things that we, of course, also know, I would say that was not the initial idea to make the next step out of this history, but more coming from the idea, how can we still work, like Helga say, artistically, and how can we still go on, and how can we create a place where people can go on with their artistic practice. And the only thing that I would say probably for each artist plays a role is, of course, the instruction, either the instruction to yourself or the instruction to your performers or the instruction to the audience. I would say the whole theater ritual is is actually a score, like a ritual that we go through each time we visit a theater. And as soon as you start to change certain things within your artistic practice, within these instructions, you're creating a score. And I think that's it's just a document, I would say, that is created through your artistic practice that is instructive anyhow. And so yeah, I'm trying to not to explain too much about it, but go more ask the artist, like, how do you work in an instructive way? Like, how do you instruct your piece to make it unfold? And that's quite easy, actually. That doesn't take a lot of time.
It's maybe, if I can add up to this, it's maybe also a way of, I mean, we invite artists to share their practice. So like, it's a way of sharing with the audience. Maybe also it's a chance you're not sharing the result of your practice, but maybe it's the moment to share the work, the research, the practice. I mean, the practicing, actually, the rehearsal space. Almost, I have the feeling you invite people into your rehearsal space as an artist, and that's why this project is, in the end, of course, it will with every score change. So the meaning of it will change, because people invite us to different spaces, and wherever they are, wherever they come from, they have different connotations, they have different history with this, and hopefully, and then a score works somehow if the artist managed to communicate with the audience this space and invites into that space. So like, actually, our website is just there to be carried away again. So you're just like visiting the website to be thrown out of it again, and then
to get lost.
To get lost. I mean, and every score is getting you into a different space. So like, it's also about inviting artists from different spaces. So that is maybe where we can have a saying in that way we can hope to, or guarantee together with the partners who we always ask, I mean, we collaborate with for the curation of the scores, to look for artists in different spaces and different fields and different ways of thinking. And then it's the whole idea that you go to the audience and say, like, we're not together in the same space, we're not together here in one room, so and still here is a little bit that I have to offer for you. And if you change your body in that way, we are suddenly maybe in the same body space, even though we're not in the same room space.
I wonder if this will, when we met, we discussed, or you mentioned about how this will affect theater, and what will the kind of post-pandemic theater look like. And I could hear that you were almost suggesting that there will be some kind of a real change, like a paradigm shift happening inside our practice. Of course, things change from one week to another. It's very interesting, because our ideas, which look really relevant and now, can be tomorrow just like in the cut. It may be useless, but I mean, things change so fast. But to suggest this kind of change, which might also be needed, and coming, there's other pressures also from the climate change, from all kinds of pressures that we're feeling in the sector of international performing arts. do you think this really is a shift that will stay with us, or do you think we fall back into our bad habits? Which I don't think they're all that bad, but I mean, we don't want to debate about that now.
Yeah, I think now people, all of us, we needed to think it over. Like, how important is it that I personally actually go in this plane and, you know, travel all the way to whatever, to a long distance or a short distance flight, and how important is my very presence? Or can I find possibilities like to like communicate my ideas? Like, can I just send a concept, or can I just send, you know, instructions, and I have like collaborators on the spot, like to bridge this and like to help me realizing my projects or my idea at another place. So I think hopefully we take some of these inventions like to really prove, like, do I need to travel? Do we need to travel all this material? Is it so important that I personally, you know, that I'm there? And I totally miss traveling. I really have to admit, and I miss like meeting people in one space. I'd rather prefer to sit with you in one space now and, you know, really send you and talk to you. But it is possible in a way. So I think that's what we need to do, like to really see, is it, how important is it? And if it's really important, of course, please, you know, meet in person, like get confused at a place, you know, shut your door and travel somewhere. It's important, I think. But maybe not in on the level that we used to do this, and maybe not that exclusively. Like, you know, if you said like initially, if you said like, okay, I can't come to this panel, you were out. Like if you said I can't make this journey, it didn't happen. So maybe it's a mixture to say, yes, I would like to participate in this panel, or I would like to do this work, but here is my suggestion how we can do this. And I could be in the internet or through sending whatever, you know, like really come up with new ideas for that. That would be great. And then, yes, it was not only like a bad time. Maybe it just made us, think faster in a way. Because what you mentioned, like, of course, we were all at this point where we looked at our CO2 footprint and, you know, were shocked on our own responsibility in that. And how strong is an idea that you need to destroy something? So maybe just, you know, make it, be more flexible in the tools.
Yeah, and also like time-wise, coming to this question of the post-pandemic theater, and when will we reach the phase of post-pandemic, because we are not there yet, obviously. I think that is also the reason why, or at least from my interpretation or my point of view, why 1,000 might be a good number, because I just roughly guessing, I would say probably 1,000 scores, and then maybe then we could think about going back to the old rituals, but I would say probably not before that, if ever. So I'm pretty skeptical when it comes to this going back to where we were before thing.
What do you think, David?
What do I think? I think that Cornelia said before that we are not describing ourselves only in the tradition of scored art and art scores. And I think, but we try to reach new, we try to use this technique to maybe get a grip on this situation at the moment. And one thing that also kind of started to formulate before the whole Corona thing started happening is that the arts were struggling with the idea how we could break up hierarchical forms, not only in the arts, but also towards the audience. Here, I'm living in Brussels and working here for almost 20 years. And at least here, the discourse of participatory art is very, very big. And a lot of artists that work in theaters also have at least one project per year where they somehow are in the streets or in the city. And so there are a lot of projects and ideas, and some fail and some succeed. And I think we all actually have a practice in this. So that brings us together here as well in this group. of 1,000 scores. So I think the idea of somehow finding forms to how to democratize, is that a word actually? Democratize art, somehow to not only to give something to the people, but just somehow also to really react on the reactions. So the great thing is that we didn't come up with 1,000 scores, point, here they are, go for it. No, we actually, every score will somehow react on the scores that are there already, and somehow also on the reactions, and somehow I think that the audience is steering that project as well. And I think if there's anything to do, I mean, there's a lot of things to change and also a lot of things to keep, because there are a lot of things I love as well about the arts as they were. But one thing is that there will be a different relation with the audience, I think, between the artist and the audience. And I think this is really then about content, not only about the structure, and it's not only about the medium of the internet, which it is as well, because with the medium comes the change, but it is also about what people exactly write into the scores. And there, I think we start to see already now, even though it's just some scores, we see a shift from where scores, Fluxus scores, for example, they were looking for the absurd, they were looking for the minimalism, they were looking for other things than people look nowadays in their scores. If you go to the website, and I think that will only grow, especially with the bunch of scores that happens now in the week of Tanz im August, and where we suddenly get a lot of body scores, I expect to see. And I think there you see already a tendency that is contemporary in that sense, because it speaks differently to the audience and asks actually a direct reaction, say like, what do you think actually if I do this? What is your input into my work? So, and then you start shifting the hierarchies already. So maybe that is kind of a content shift to expect.
Right. It sounds like you are going to destroy the coherent universal idea of a score, which is probably very welcome. So with every score, it will be more diverse of what we think about what the score can or should be.
Yeah,
so
all the scores together define what it is. So it's like, it is only that what is there somehow.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. So 1,000 scores, and how many do you have now?
Good question.
17 or 16 or something like that.
Who is on the website?
So you will be on this for the next 10 years at least.
Well, let's see.
Hopefully.
So maybe at some point in the next coming 10 years, our ways will cross again in commissioning some scores.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was really lovely to have you here this. It's a morning actually when we are doing this now, but this will be shown in the evening. And I wish you the best of luck for the next 10 years.
Thank you.
It's quite an archive you are putting together, and I think it will be very interesting to see in the coming years how that archive, because it's also an archive and document of our times, how it will grow and where it will go. So good luck with all of that, and hope to see you live at some point in the future.
At some point in the future, yes.
Thank you, and thank you for being part of this.
We are very happy. And till then, stay safe and sound, and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Hard. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
So welcome back to the studio live from How To. If somebody just joined us, my name is Virve, and I will tell you a little bit what happens next. So we have the very first Happy to Listen session starting in a few minutes. It is a discussion about Indigenous perspectives on arts and activism. We are very happy to present two fantastic artists from different sides of the world. We will have Victoria Hunt with us. She comes from Australia. She's an Australian-born Maori artist working somewhere between dance, choreography, performance art, video, and photography. She will also show her film, Take, to us tonight, which is absolutely beautiful film, so we are very proud to present that. Also, we will be joined from America, from US, Emily Johnson, originally from Alaska, now living in New York. She will read a little piece of her from her story, Surgent Love. And then these artists will engage in a dialogue. This is first happy to listen. First of all, the idea is that we listen to people, what they have to say, wherever they come from, and especially when they come from places where they have different type of knowledge and different type of perspectives to the common, the contemporaneity where we are today. After they have had the dialogue, we will have some audience questions. So those of you who are now in your YouTube channel watching this, on your right-hand side from the video, you will see a chat function, and there you can find a link to Frage jetzt, and this means ask now. So there, with that link, you will get to leave your questions and comments to the speakers. We will bring them in a little later, and you can also vote. So if you think your question is already there, someone else has posted it, please click vote for it so that we know which questions are most burning for you. So please come in, join the discussion later. And now I would like to leave the floor to Victoria, who is live from Sydney, and Emily, who is live from New York. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Well, I guess I'd like to begin by just orientating this space towards the cosmological and towards the honouring of the kaupapa of what I'd like to share in this conversation. Hinemihi, 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 karangamai, 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 ho kainga, tangata whenua, papatuanuku, whakatomai, whakatomai, whakatomai rā. Ko tarawera te maunga, ko tarawera te awa, ko te aroa te iwi, ko te aroa te waka, ko hinemihi te hapu, ko hinemihi te whari tupuna, ko Ngāti e Te Arawa, ko Mātua, ko Victoria, Vicky, Vic, aho. So what I was just saying is I was calling to my whari tupuna, to my ancestress, Hinemihi, calling her home. And I was introducing myself as connected to a mountain and to rivers and lakes, to a tribe, to a canoe that brought us to Aotearoa, to a sub-tribe, Ngāti Hinemihi, and to the navigator that I descend from as well, Ngāti and his partner Kearoa, about 26 generations back. Yes, and I'm Australian born. I was born on the land of the Yugambeh people up in Surfers Paradise. And I wish to pay my respects and gratitude for this land that I'm speaking from today, this morning. I'm on the unceded, occupied land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And Eora means this place or here. And it was a word that Aboriginal people gave to the British to describe where they were from. So it's really wonderful to be here with Emily. I think the last time we met and had a talk was in a foyer in Melbourne on Naarm in 2017. And so this is really the first time we've kind of met again. So I'm really interested in how the Wairua will kind of unfold, how the waters will meet and unfold in this conversation together with you, and to share practice and to talk about some work. And as mentioned, I'm going to show a film called Take, which is honouring Hinamihi, who is a female ancestress. She's an ancestress with a lot of mana, who's connected to having a guardian taniwha spirit connected to her, Katore. She's also embodied in a marae, which is an ancestral meetinghouse. She's a protector and guardian of my hapu sub-tribe. And this film traces a journey of origins and a journey of her journey and the tribe's journey of traumatic events, colonial violence. Years ago, one of my mentors, Charles Cornejo, encouraged me to think about Hinamihi in this way, as I am the house and the house is me, and I dance the history of the house and she reveals my history. So that's the beginning of what I want to offer and share in this space.
Beautiful. Shemai, hello everyone. From wherever you are gathered, there in Berlin or in your homes. I wish I were there in person to share a drink with you and share some more intimate space with Victoria, but for the moment, I'm glad to be here with you in this way. And Kuyana all to Tanz and August, to Herwith and Johanna and Andrea and Tony, and to Vic in that foyer in NARM in Melbourne in 2017. I had just seen your work, Tange Wai. And the images from that work are still so present with me. And I look forward to getting to know you more in this conversation and future ones as well. I'm Emily Johnson, and I'm from the Yupik Nation in what is called Alaska. I live now here on Lenapehoking, Lenapeyok homelands, on the Lower East Side of Mannahatta in what some people call New York City. And I pay my respects to ancestors and people here, and also work to try to find pathways that the Lenapeyok people who were forcibly removed from here can return to their homelands. And as an occupier here now, that's one of my daily responsibilities. I'm wearing this, I guess, halter top black dress, some woven red earrings with a sculptural shell. I have long dark hair that's down, and I'm sitting in front of my bookcase, which has a lot of books and shelves in it here in my apartment. And I want to acknowledge and appreciate and complicate these changing shapes and forms of our gatherings, this digital space that we're in now that is vital for these kinds of gatherings at the moment, but vital, more importantly, to access for disability plus and immunocompromised folks, but also to know and to understand that this is a very colonized space whose very making the technology extracts from our lands and creates inequity for people who don't have devices, whose places of dispossession don't have electricity or high-speed internet. We're also, of course, in the midst of this pandemic and in all of our own personal and collective griefs and losses. Also, it's this emergent space, right? What does it mean to be together and to re-world together? Also, this midst of the Black Lives Matters uprising. And I am in solidarity and on the streets with Black leaders for Black liberation. And I'm here also, as always, for Indigenous and First Nation sovereignty and for justice and in protection of land and water. My really dear friend and sister, Karen Mekele, she and I work on this concept called the kinstillatory, which is a process of relationality, and it's relationality with one another, but also all of our ancestors and ancestry past and future. And it's with our more than human kin, both earthbound and celestial, and it's with possibility. And so I'm really happy to be here with those of you who I can't see in this constellatory, and with Vic, who I can see here on the screen in this constellatory. And I'll be back with you after Vic's film to share a few excerpts from this essay that is called Surgent Love.
Take, take, take.
That film is so beautiful, and I know we'll talk about it more when we're both on the screen together, but I just want to recognize how much strength it takes to make something so personal and so important. And I got so angry watching because it makes me so angry that people still think that it's okay to hold on to our ancestors. So thank you for making that. I'm going to read for you all this little bits of this essay. And I thank Unprojects and Unmagazine in Australia for commissioning and publishing this essay as a whole. So it starts like this. My grandma Hannah, she made the wallet that I carry with me every day. It's tanned caribou hide, trimmed with small green and white glass beads, this perfect 5-petal flower, dark green and iridescent orange with a light pink center. It's sitting next to me here in Lenapeyok homeland, Lenapehoking. I carry grandma's gorgeous wallet with me, proudly lay it on the table or the bar when I'm about to pay. People always ask and I smile. I get to tell them that grandma made it, and I get to tell them that she won a blue ribbon at the state fair. I've lost this wallet twice. It's come back. The last time I was on Duwamish lands and I was rehearsing and I was improvising with my eyes closed. And while I was doing that, somebody came into the studio and took my bag. And I went to the police and I filed a report. And they said that there was nothing that they could do. And a few weeks later, the wallet came back to me from the Seattle Post. And it had a note accompanying it saying that this happens often. People take a bag or a purse or a wallet and they take what they need or what they want, and then they leave the rest in the post box. And it is the policy of the Seattle Post Office to return what belongings are not theirs. And I tell that part of the story often when I'm doing decolonization work with institutions and museums and people, because it's so simple and so radical to return what is not yours. My cousin, Ducky, and I, we like to get together with grandma to make a gudak. It's this sweet mixture of whipped seal oil or Crisco, berries, sugar, whitefish. We bring my niece Kaya if we can, teach her as we also learn. With my friend and collaborator, Jen Ray, a brilliant Métis NARM-based artist researcher, we made this delicious dessert in 2017 for the occasion of Shore Feast in NARM. We were after an Alaska-Australia agudak of sorts. So with my cousin, my mom, and my grandma on the phone in Alaska, we worked in the downstairs kitchen at Art's House in Melbourne, trying to find the right consistency and the color and the flavor with rainforest cherry and lily-pilly, muntries and bush honey and whiting, in place of blueberry and salmonberry, sultanas and whitefish. The whiting is so much smaller than whitefish with so many more bones. And the bush honey a dark color that changed the tone until we whipped it enough. The Crisco even was difficult to find in Australia, save expat and dear friend Nancy Black, who knew where to get it. Our efforts and the challenge and the idea of sharing something from home merged with Jen's skill and determination and the collaborative effort of us all, including the elderly Italian man who harvested and delivered prickly pears for the sweet reduction we needed. Nothing makes me proud as offering something my grandma taught us to make. We surge forward with what we are trying to build and make and learn and remember with the same effort our grandmas and ancestors give or gave or held back out of necessity. I smiled every time someone came back for seconds of the fish ice cream. And grandma likes this story too. When I stood at the front lines at Oceti Shakowin for Oceti Shakowin with fellow water protectors facing bullets and water hoses, arrest, and heartbreak at the fact we have to protect what is ours in the first place, I raised up my arms. My fellow protectors led in song and strength and called upon colonizing trespassers to leave sacred ground, and we all lifted our arms to show we had no weapons. Along with my fellow protectors, I danced right foot and left foot, right foot and left foot with my arms raised up. And I looked at each of the men standing above us on the hill, their riot gear on, their visors pulled down, their weapons and their hoses drawn. And I saw anger in them. And for some reason, I thought about the people who love them because surely they exist. And I asked in my mind, each of those men to feel love and to look at us with love. And I knew that each of those men had a choice. They could put their gun down, they could turn around, and they could go home. They did not choose this. I remember our singing in the face of violence, and I remember our arms raised. And we were on that front line a long time. It was cold and it was tense. But when I think back to that extended time on that particular riverbank, I feel a protection around us. The songs, the smoke, the prayers, and the love offered. And when I think of this love we offered to our enemy, I come so close to grief. There is so much to grieve. My grandma, she told me she was not allowed to attend Yurak, or dance, in the village where she grew up. She said, Mama didn't let us go. She was allowed to watch the dancers practice, and sometimes she made the trip across the river with her mom and sister in winter to do so. But when the village gathered for Yurak, when we would ask her if we could go, she said, no, you can't go. Her mother never explained it. She just said, no, you can't go. So in 1994, when Grandma and I went to a dance festival in the village of St. Mary's, Alaska, it was the first time she had seen Yurak in decades. How do we feel that rub of love and grief? Mama didn't let us go. How do we let that propel us to good action? Put down your guns. How do we say each day, I am sorry? How do we say each day, I forgive you? And what from that might spark? How do I hold my hands and my arms up to my enemy, not in surrender, not to show I have no weapons, but in surging, surgent love? My grandma, she was not allowed to attend dances. Our dances are healing, they are medicine, they are communal, they are real. There's a dance I want to make that moves the world. It moves everyone, the audience and the makers and the performers, from the performed moment to continued action in the world and future, not as in inspire and not as in guide. I want to make a deep structural change, a deep consciousness shift, a community coalition of allyship that centers Indigenous brilliance, that is justice, that is equity in action. I speak of dances as gatherings. I speak of performing as offering. I see dance as vital in the world because we are human and more than human, star and constellation, fire and tree, all oceans and all water, ancestor and future ancestor, thought and Indigenous-led knowledge is moving and surging. It is not easy work, this Indigenous surgent love. The other night, pre-pandemic, I stepped into a hotel elevator filled with 5 men. I'm not afraid of men, and I'm also not afraid of men. I said hello to the still air. I looked them each in the face. When I stepped out at my floor, the guy who had been in front of me and to the left, facing me with his back to the north side of the elevator, yelled out his room number. I heard one of the other guys say, dude, you're a dick. Someone else laughed. And I can say that I despise this moment. This man took space and air from the world to extend his assuming, callous, dismantled, remorseless, raping, conquering, taking thoughts to me, at me, as if anything he wanted to take, he could take. As if anything he wanted could be smattered by his disgusting self and left on me, in me. The back of my neck became a neck that is not mine. It is not my neck anymore or ever again. It is not my neck to feel shame put upon it, to droop down so low that my forehead curls into my chest, so low that my chest curls into my belly, curling, huddled into itself, drowning in his voice and sounds. That is not my neck, not my body, not my hatred, not my drowning. My body. My body comes from generations and generations and generations of love. My body comes also from men who took, who raped, who tried above all else to conquer. But my body, more than anything, comes from women. Women who unfurl again and again, heated, unaccepting of force and forced rage, who in their own wisdom direct their anger and grief to movement, action, peace. This is some of those women. my grandma's sister, there, the baby, and my great-grandma Lena, and my great-great-grandma Annan, and my great-great-great-grandma Kumiak here. Kumiak gave birth to Annan in a kayak as she had to move from an island to the mainland. And every day I think about making the world that my ancestors envisioned for me and for us. Kuyana for listening.
Kia kaha, Emily. Such courage and beauty and strength and resilience. Thank you for showing me the picture of your women. Such an honor to come from these lines of matriarchs. And I loved the focus also on how we carry their wishes and their dreams with us into this present future moment as well, and the responsibility to do what can be done now to ensure that the future generations are able to carry and be connected and be strong, and to be healed from the trauma and the wounds and and to stand in that space of aroha, of love, even in the face of massive forces that are working very strongly to undermine.
Think about that all now. In this moment, I'm feeling okay today, in this moment of that we're all in the energy, moving every day, what I can manage, what I can take on, what I just can't that day. It's quite acute. But a few days ago, I would say I was distraught because I could feel that every decision being made right now, every action felt like it had so much importance. And I guess this emergent time that I talked about, that I mentioned in the beginning, it is so important. And also I feel the enemy forces also making their consistent plans and their consistent actions without regard to this future that we're talking about, to this future that our ancestors wished and put into play for us. And so it feels like that feels pretty extreme right now, that like what we need to come to. And I guess that's the question. How do we come to that over and over with love, but with enough power in that love to make the change that is absolutely imperative right now?
Yeah, and I guess recognizing the legacy of that violence, and also for me being, even though I'm Indigenous Maori, but I'm a settler on Gadigal land, and so my allyship to those histories for Indigenous, like First Peoples here, is so crucial, because to make space to kind of to try and listen and understand, and to make room for that knowledge and those voices to come and guide in this process too. Yeah, many perspectives all coming together to do this work.
I don't know what it's like over there. I used to be able to visit Australia often. I was there so much in the last many years, and I miss it. But here, when you say the perspectives coming together to do this work, the really seeing and being on the lines of the front lines during Black Lives Matters right now, and seeing the ways in which we as First Nations and Indigenous folks need to be there to protect our Black brothers and sisters and cousins and work for liberation, and seeing also how it is so intrinsically tied to sovereignty, and seeing also the ways in which I haven't always been the best ally to Black people. I've been so focused on Indigenous and First Nation sovereignty and justice. And so now my perspective, my view, my heart, my body, everything has shifted, and I guess I call that on myself, and how do we demand justice? How do we demand not to be erased, even in a moment of Black Lives Matters as well? But how do we build these I don't know, words like coalitions, etc. Like maybe that's the right word, or maybe that's not. These friendships, these working, these warriorships together. Sometimes it's like, is dance the right way right now? And maybe that's, a silly question we always come back to again and again. Am I doing enough in the world? Am I doing enough in the world? I know that my body has been called to those streets. My body during pandemic has been called to deliver food. My body hasn't actually been called to make dance at the moment, but I of course see that all as relation of movement and of action. And then I see every time I'm carrying bags of groceries to somebody's door that is part of the dance that is being made at this moment, and it's part of this larger shift. It's like, it's so clear to me what does need that shift. But then that fear is so strong that if it doesn't happen, or if the colonizers continue.
Yeah, just making me think of those that are in communities as well, that are struggling and that are finding access to sort of basic needs very difficult at the moment. And as much as the travel restrictions have quietened and given some rest, which is so necessary in terms of the constant extraction and violation of the Earth Mother. And, then there's the complication as well with having kin and family who, are elderly, who are struggling, as well. And I have an auntie who turned 80, and what I'm being called to as well is to, call her every day and to make sure that she's okay. And so those practices of care and keeping in contact with those that and with each other and within friendship groups, because it's a very sort of turbulent pendulum of emotions and feelings of letting go and waiting, and I guess also being in a place of questioning what is relevant, what is required, how can what is it to be in service. And I mean, dance for me also is about being danced by all of these forces, and being danced into these relationships, and learning from what is it to also be grounded and to be connected. So it's very much calling me to come back into that relationship to the earth and to the land and to the skies and to prayer, to less about making performance, but just about really being able to come back to this relationship to place, and to tune in and be available, I think.
For so many years, I've thought about the process of making performance as equal to the moment of performance itself. And for me, that process is very community based and revolves around groups of people who I need to help me make the performance, whether that's making the quilts or fish-skin lanterns or making the feasts, or like whatever that action is in the world up to the performance. And in this working as a pretty privileged artist in these spaces, that I think for a while it was kind of I think that the way in which I focused on that process and on the equitable space with folks who are part of the process from start through end through performance. For some people it was new, right? Like, and now to me it always makes sense that we build something together and that we experience what we build together also together. And thinking about this word gathering, thinking about performance, thinking about making performance right now, I guess I'm questioning, thinking about what have I learned in my practice as an artist for the last 20 years that can help me and maybe help others in this moment of like, how do we make, how do we share, what is process now? I have no answers, but I'm just thinking of that, of like teaching myself from my past self into my current and future self. What is it to be a choreographer? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm going through a similar process where also the work that I've been dedicated to has been, very particularly about honouring the rematriation or the repatriation of our ancestors. So I'm really engaging with power structures like, the British National Trust or collections that, are in this relationship that's very delicate and has needed to be negotiated carefully over decades. And there's accountabilities to being able to know what to say and what not to say, and how and when things are appropriate. And leading up to before the pandemic in June, the negotiations for Hinamihi to be returned were so much closer, and so there's a big question mark around that at the moment as well. But likewise, the what it is to make work or to perform or to embody stories and to embody histories and to embody the protest or to embody, in that sense, the activisms around trying to, look at these power relationships, even within theatres and within, presentational spaces as power spaces. So what is it to make work in those spaces that, try to also, orientate that space towards the cosmological, towards ceremony and ritual, and acknowledgement of, whose land are we performing on? What are those relationships to those lineages and histories? And also for an audience to bring the audience into a relationship to the ancestral. So for me and the work and how I've been guided to make work as well is to acknowledge the ancestry of, even in this conversation right now, and I don't know who is beyond this screen, but it's acknowledging that we are all, and we all are the carriers of relationships and histories and genealogies and perspectives and ancestries. And so in this conversation, all of that is here, right with us, right at this moment in time. And so I think there's still a value, or there's still potential, there's still a function for being able to gather and also I guess kind of question the different worldviews that are present as well, and then be able to also be able to shift worldviews. I mean, I've made work that's taken 10 years. It took 10 years to make a solo, and that's because of these relationships with elders and with my own entering into processes and learning as well, not being born on ancestral land. So I've had a journey to reconnect, and I've had to take time and understand protocols and all sorts of things. So, but the work has also been very trauma carrying. And it's been about rupture, and it's been about violation, and it's been about transgressions, and it's been about, you know, custodianship versus, you know, the economics of property. And so I think for me, I'm just questioning at this point in time, you know, this sort of from the trauma, there's a release at this moment in time to understand the new energies, the new emergent energies that are, you know, feel so vital, you know, in this moment. And so it's calling in then the aroha and the love and the ways that, you know, other kinds of voicings from my ancestors. I'm still in a very deep dreaming around all of this at the moment, so it is a little hard to talk, but there's some massive shifts.
That's what I was thinking as you were just speaking of transformation, and you know, that's a word, a process that I have been in very, very consistently, very deeply, very specifically, very consciously, very cellularly for many years, and knowing that the way in which, not knowing the ways in which we need to transform, but knowing that transformation is what is called for, is what is called for. And I think it was as you were speaking, it was reminding me of this, like actually being in that transformation, in this transformation now, this transformation that has brought itself here. It's never, transformation is fire, transformation is realignment, transformation is death, transformation is shifting that worldview, shifting your relationality, is understanding your kinships and these kinsulatory kinships that are outside of previous understanding. And I guess I'm really appreciating in this conversation that I feel like the anxiety that I've been feeling that is just like this close is part of that, and it's okay, and maybe I can calm that anxiety a little bit because that transformation is present, and actually the best way is to stay within it. You know, and I also am appreciating the way in which it feels like you're generously like bringing people in, right? Like audience. What is audience right now? What is audience in this transformation, in this shift? How can viewership, and I often think of it as responsible audienceship, right? Like how are we in this process together? And of course that's beyond the art world, that's in the entirety of the world. Like you as a diplomat, in these different spaces, calling for a very specific return. I've been really a proponent lately with funders here in different conversations here about being really specific, being radical about the calls for justice, about the work of anti-racism. So much so that if you are an organization or an institution, presenter, museum who has not done that work, who still holds belongings, who still holds our ancestors within their walls, who doesn't present Indigenous folks, who sidelines people of color, who don't work with trans people, then you don't reopen and you are not funded anymore. And I know that that can sound really harsh and like, oh, we need our cultural institutions and we need our spaces. But I think this is, I'm trying to think about it more generously because I'm pretty hard about it. I'm like, I know which one shouldn't open, you know? I know who's not doing the work, but I also, and it's an ongoing process, and it's, you know, it's like, all right, the ways in which you commit now are part of maybe this transformation, the ways in which we all individually commit to this. And audience, again, is part of that. Audience can demand from our institutions to return our belongings, can demand, like, I hope that in this moment too, our accompliceship grows so that we're like bringing in, we lead it, but we bring in folks who can also maybe be part of that shift.
Yeah, a deep time for yeah, it's like an audit really of and a resetting of alignment to like future accountability from this moment and before.
Hi. Can you see me, Emily and Victoria? Thank you so much for your really touching and enlightening talk. We have some audience questions already. Would you like to take some? There's some very quickly, probably answered questions. And one of them is to Victoria, asking about the fate of the meeting home. Where is she currently, and is there a hope that it will come home at some point?
Her pare, which is the pare is a door lintel, and it's a very incredibly symbolic carving that represents entering into the body, and Hinamihi is a female ancestor, so it's entered into her body. It also is the realm of transformation, of transition, of passing from the living into the non-living, and it is a threshold of that holds, as a pelvis, it holds feminine knowledge of the atua wahine, of the goddesses, of the realms of these energies. So that is in a private collection in Paris, and it's more difficult to connect with at the moment currently. The British National Trust have come to Aotearoa in 2018 for the first time to speak with Ngāti Hinamihi descendants directly. And there have been some very progressive negotiations after many decades of work and relationship to come to an understanding that Hinamihi isn't a lifeless artifact or an object, that she's an ancestress, that she's living, and that she's not a restoration project, she's a repatriation project. So the organisation within the iwi and within the hapu have been very intense in terms of preparation and proposals, and also working with, previously with the Papa Museum Heritage Trust and a whole range of people. So The short answer is that things are moving. They tend to move quickly and slowly, and the time we're not sure, but I think there's a genuine momentum to bringing her home.
That sounds like good news. Emily, there is a question to you, and I also remember that you are hosting these monthly ceremonial fires at the Lower Manhattan, and there's a question to you about what is your recommendations on how to maintain social community and caring and protection rituals during the COVID pandemic?
Well, I can give an example of these fires, actually. So the project is called Constellatory Mappings, Light and Dark Matter, and it's been going for a few years, monthly or not monthly, but ceremonial fires in partnership with Abrams Art Center here on the Lower East Side of Mannahatta, and really centering the fire as its own being space in the process of holding this space, fire centered, having it be Indigenous-led space and also a space that is welcoming to passerbys, to community, and really, as I've been holding these fires, really also seeing myself kind of outside of it, watching and learning from the fire and from the technology of the fire itself. And Karen Recollet and I wrote about it, about this process and about the place that this creates and the way in which it creates also an opportunity for a deep looking at Indigenous and settler relationships and a deep way of looking at a process of land back, of relationality to land. Over the last few months since the pandemic, we've held that fire remotely in different ways. We paid a lot of attention to the language around the invitation, which we shared on social medias and such. We asked sometimes people to not open their screens and just set aside a certain time to be with a candle, for example, and thinking about the way that the fire in this moment is called to be in a different shape. We can still hold that fire, but we can hold our individual fires. With each moment of gathering, having a very particular attention around that time together, but separately. And so we did that in different forms for the months that we needed to. And just last month, we were able to hold one together where we were, we could be together. We thought about social distance in relation to fire. So we thought about the way in which fire teaches us distance. And we thought about the way in which we could ask people to come in a respectful way, not as you must maintain a social distance, but you do, but how do you think about it in terms of respect and protection and care for one another? So it's not so much a rule that you adhere to, but it's changing your perspective so that you're thinking about, I care for this either stranger or neighbor who came to this event. And so what do I do so that I show that care and that protection for that person or those people? So in these cases, it's wearing masks, it's washing your hands, and it's maintaining that distance. And decided that we listened to the fire. We listened to the fire, that the shape of the fire is still to have it individual. So we held burning candles rather than a central fire, just so that we could still encourage that space and really encourage that reflection. This time is needed such individual reflection. We have not had over here any kind of moment of grief. 23,000 of my neighbors have died from COVID in this city. We have not collectively ever processed that. We have leadership here that continues to deny that it's even a problem, as the epicenters are now in the rural space. How do we, who were in an epicenter here, how do we maybe provide some thoughts about care and protection right now, because it's not coming from any kind of government leadership. So how do we do that in our communities and when we can, in our gatherings? I'm still learning, but those are.
Then there is a question which is actually to both of you. And it goes like this. Is there a potential for Indigenous artists to establish a system of aesthetics that is freed from the judgments of the colonizers, the Western art world? Or do they always have to adapt to the oppressor's standards or even be seen or to be even seen or listened to? This is a question to the artist in you.
The question of aesthetics is it's a tricky, difficult one. I feel like the way through this question is through a deeper relationship or connecting to cultural kind of concepts, and through that are not necessarily around aesthetics. They're around the kind of the forces and the energies and the intentions of what it is to be Indigenous and what it is to have a focus or to be in a focused moment. Perhaps it's performance, perhaps it's ceremony, perhaps whatever, but I think the work then is about understanding the alignment and the protocols that create the right circumstances and situations in order for something to kind of manifest from to be manifest or make visible from perhaps the invisible. And there's a kind of relationship there that is negotiated, that for me, the aesthetics is neither here nor there in a way. I think that but I think innovation is something that as Indigenous people we have always done, and the courage to innovate and be mavericks, in terms of what it is to express what needs to be expressed. And that again is not about aesthetics; it's about the necessity for something to happen, for something to come through, to be a conduit as well. So.
Also, the Western cultural aesthetic asserted itself. There's a way in which to not hear that assertion, even if that is your culture. The way in which we can together and individually again stop thinking the way that we have been taught to think by others. That's an internal process ourselves, and we can note, are we looking, are we seeing, are we taking this in a space of I don't know what it takes, but does it take openness, take question, curiosity, love? Am I looking, experiencing this through that sphere, or am I looking at this through a lineage that I have been taught, whether or not I know that I've been taught it, we all know it. So I think that's maybe something that people can do, everyone can do on your own as you're thinking through, as you're understanding, as you're work that others people make is to check that process within oneself. Here, people are always questioning. It relates so quickly to me to land back. People are always like, "How do people back?" Actually, yes, that can. That can happen, and we will have a different reality. We will have a different governance system. We'll have different languages. We will have different cultures that are here already. They will just they will be in a different place of leadership. It's always kind of coming against our own internal thoughts that something can't happen. But we're here in possibility.
Can you tell us a little bit, since both of you are right now very, very involved in activism, you have your, even those are not, they are inseparable, your art and your activism, but you're very much in the activist mode. Well, I guess we all have to be at this moment. It's quite a crucial moment in the whole world. Would you like to share with us what is the next artistic adventure that you are launching now? What is your next artwork going to deal with? I know a little bit about it, but it would be lovely to hear from you. Emily, do you want to start? And can you please be quite near the microphone, because we are sometimes losing you a little bit. Thank you.
I am in the process, have been before pandemic, thinking about creating a piece. So in all of my work for the last 15 years, I've been visioning, right? Envisioning with communities and the people that I mentioned before, about what our future might be. What do we think? What do we want? How do we get there? And at some point last year, I was kind of tired of that. And I want that better future now. So I started to think about, how do I create a piece that is in that better future? We are there, we are in that future. And maybe through being there, it actually comes to exist. But in that process, I also want to change the structure of how I work in the world. So I want this piece, it's called Being, Future Being. I want whatever that performed moment is to generate the action into the world. So in that moment, we are creating somehow a structure of alignment and accomplishment that the work in the world continues. That moment of that present beautiful future actually exists, and it reverberates outward. And part of that process is building these teams of people, this group of Indigenous scholars called the Body of Scholarship, who are thinking through, what does it mean to gather? What are protocols for gathering? What are the stakes of gathering? It's a group of Lenape people who are not council leaders and are not necessarily even cultural leaders, but artists and people from the Lenape diaspora, so that we can start to have the conversation of Lenape return from the point of the creation of this work from the start. It's a group of people who are thinking about this architecture of the overflow, which is the thing that I think about from performance outward. What is that, and how is that actually a structure that could be brought to many other places in the world? Can be a function of our world as architecture.
Lovely. And we know, Victoria, that it takes time for you to work and process your ideas. Are you starting a new cycle of thoughts for your future work?
I'm very much in process. That is because it's just a continuation and a deepening, and I guess I'm still sort of catching and seeing things in my dreams and in visions as well. So within that, I guess it's taking me into back to the homelands, into Tarawera, and understanding the origins of fire and the guardianship of subterranean fire. Very much called into tectonic shifts and movements. And in fact, fire in Māori is Whaea, which is mother or older or elder woman. Mahuika is an entity that governs the realms of fire. She's a grandmother of fire. So I'm being taken very much into the earth and underneath into these realms. I'm very inspired by collaboration. I've been collaborating with a Cree Métis artist in Turtle Island called Mo Clark, and with their interest as well, we're weaving other sorts of cosmologies and energies and stories. So beautiful artist who is a singer and songwriter and poet and transformational being. So very inspired by the interweaving of many things there. Yeah. So also in conversation again with collaborators that I work with, I've continued to work with for over many years and building those relationships. Yeah.
Lovely. I have one more audience question that I would like to. It's the last one coming from the chat. Oh God, this is going to be a challenge, and I do excuse my if I make a mistake. But I mean, it's there is thank you in one or the other languages that you might master. Kinanaskomitin iske wewak. Does it sound a bell? I think it's thank you. That's what it says here. Thank you. And the question is, how do you maintain connections to kin/stellations, given the distance that we are called to take in this time, and how are you able to maintain depth in witness? I think you already kind of answered this question, Emily, in your talking about the fire.
I can just offer. First, Vic, and maybe this is part of answering it, say hello to Mo next time you speak to them. And I've been, I guess, been thinking about, in continuing conversation about collaborators, so really thinking about how in these many months, we mostly spot, how I've built a relationship with this tree, the one tree that I can see outside of my window. But how's it not just me kind of gazing at a tree that is separate from me, but how can I actually listen? And same as with the fire, how do I actually listen and learn from other beings as collaborators? And so thinking about the whole sphere of these constellatory relationships we are all part of, that, to be honest, sometimes it feels lonely because I don't have that that we long for, but in a way I think it's teaching me how to be more loving, and the way in which how to be in relationship.
Lovely. Do you want to say something about that? Yeah. Please.
There's such a thinking a lot about quantum entanglement and how during the pandemic and the kind of shifting, how these relationships are being maintained, through devices, through energy, through so many ways, and also connecting seasonally, because we're in this relationship, or there's different time zones, there's different seasons, there's different moments of sharing as well between, particularly the cycles of the moon, and just understanding how, in the southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere, different relationships, that we're all actually on this planet, we're all connected to this earth mother and all the elements and all the beings that are part of this life, all the creatures, the energies in the waters, and so that I feel like the way that to be connected is to look up into the sky and to see the moon and to see the clouds and to be in contact and to share the witnessing as well. Even we live with devices now. We can send photos of honoring of or the appearance of of these creatures that come and I had a peacock spider. I don't know if you know a peacock spider. They're very particular to here, and they've got the most incredible courtship dance. They flip their abdomens up and they do all this thing, and wonderful to be able to kind of live here and to be able to share the messagings and the visitations and, you know, with others, you know, and to receive those as well. So.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful chance to me and to everyone who was online and who will be able to access this, to get to know your work and hear your wise words. It's been really, really a pleasure to hear your stories, which have the personal touch in them and bring something new into our vocabularies when we discuss the present state and where we are and how to go forward. I mean, there's the futures we cannot imagine without new vocabularies, because we know the old vocabularies where they have taken us. So we are very, very grateful that you joined us this time, and we hope that we will see you again soon, and maybe one day we can bear hug again somewhere on this planet. Until then, stay safe, and thank you so much for this wonderful evening. Thank you.
Okay.
And it's about time to say goodbye, but before we say goodbye, we want to do again some housekeeping. This means to give you a few tips about tomorrow's program and what's coming up and how you can enjoy them in the best way. And I am going to be joined here by Alina Lauert, who is our junior producer, and she's an expert when it comes to all these digital issues, which I am sometimes a little amateurish. So to sound more professional, I am joined by Alina here now. Welcome.
Thank you.
So tomorrow is a big day, because tomorrow we will have a 3-hour event online. This is a 3-hour event with Jamil Olavale Kosoko, and it is called American Chameleon, the Living Installment 2.0. And it is a full evening of program with readings, films, poetry, talks, dialogues, all kinds of things online. It's a 3-hour fiesta. So we have added an event schedule into our homepage. So please go there if you want to be very precise and know that you want to be approximately in the right time online. So if you are really wanting to hear something specific, like, let's say, Unbreathing and the Possibility of Abolition by Dr. Vanessa E. Thompson, then you should go online and check if you're really interested in this bit. But we would absolutely welcome everybody to come online early on and stay for the full experience. It is something quite exceptional that you will experience.
Should I pick up here?
You can pick up here,
Yes.
because the Discord is the real place where this should be experienced, and Alina can tell this in perfect German.
Yeah.
What
It's
it
a
means.
really special performance, the American Chameleon, and you can enjoy the full experience on the online platform Discord. You can enter it very easily by just going to our homepage, checking out the web page for Jamil Olawale Kosoko's American Chameleon, click on the Here document that gives you instructions how to onboard onto Discord. Please do it until tomorrow, 4 p.m. Berlin time, and we are happy to help you there to find your way throughout the performance. And yes, I could also explain this for our German audience.
Yes,
maybe.
please
Yes. Auch für unsere deutschsprachige Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer. Wir bieten Ihnen natürlich auch die Anleitung dazu, wie Sie auf Discord teilnehmen können, auf Deutsch an. Gehen Sie dazu einfach auf unsere Website und gehen Sie auf das Dokument, das Ihnen sehr klar in kleinen Schritten erläutern wird, wie Sie dorthin finden, was Sie tun müssen. Dort können Sie natürlich auch teilweise die Performance, die wir Ihnen anbieten, auf Deutsch erfahren. Gewisse Teile werden allerdings auch in Englisch gehalten sein. Es bietet sich auch an, das Ganze auf dem YouTube-Livestream zu verfolgen. Und sowohl auf Discord als auch auf YouTube werden Sie 3 Filme sehen von Jamil Olawale Kosoko, die wir auf Deutsch untertiteln konnten. Das heißt, diese sind absolut barrierefrei zugänglich für Sie und werden auf beiden Kanälen für Sie veröffentlicht werden.
And if you don't want to be in the Discord, you can always join the live stream. And the live stream is in the YouTube channel of Tanz im August.
Right.
So please make your choice. Join us tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock, 6 Uhr abends.
And
I also brought the magazine im August, das Magazin im August for you, just to mention that here's also a very nice article on Jamil Olawale Kosoko, ein Artikel zu Jamil Olawale Kosoko, den Sie auch im Internet auf Deutsch vorfinden werden. Das heißt, hier im Magazin ist ja auf Englisch abgedruckt, aber es existiert auch eine deutsche Version online für Sie. Schauen Sie mal rein.
so, with these instructions, we would like to welcome you back tomorrow. And until then, good night, stay safe, and see you tomorrow.